Hello everyone and welcome to this week's old school Q&A. I'm your I'm your host, Mod Ayiza.
With the mostest.
And I'm joined by the wonderful Mod Husky.
Yeah.
And Mod Kieren.
Yo.
Yo. How are you doing? What's up? I'll go with you, Husky, first. What have you been up to this week? / what are you currently working on?
Ooh, it's mostly been a lot of like design stuff and like things like creative briefs for things that we're not like announcing to players yet, which has been quite cool. So it's like you kind of have these rotations as a developer where it's like developing stuff, designing stuff, and then like pre-design work for stuff. So it's like, yeah, getting to that point now where I'm looking excited to start like actual writing code again, you know. But it's been good.
Good. How about yourself, Kieran? What have you been up to?
I'm really good. Like today, the last quite a long session actually. It was last 2.5 hours or so. We were in our sprint review. Everyone's showing off the stuff we've just made, and like, oh my god, it's amazing how much stuff we do nowadays in just 2 weeks. It's ludicrous. The fact that sprint reviews take 2.5 hours, genuinely so exciting, and I can't wait. I can't wait for everything to start going out. Like
yeah, I know you're right. It's like we're working on so much stuff, and you don't know about any of it, but you will eventually.
Well, there's lots of good stuff you do know about, right? Like, I mean, the below ice mountain stuff is looking incredible. Like, I can't wait for that to go out. So, yeah.
Yeah, same with a Kingdom Divided. Actually, getting to see the spells that are coming from the spell book and the animations that follow them, they look so good. I can't wait. I was like thinking every time I saw a new animation, I was like, this is going to be in someone's YouTube video and it's going to be edited to the max, and I can't wait to see that. Looking at you guns, Chili, make it happen, all right? Yeah, really, really exciting. And then obviously there are things that they don't know about that they will hopefully know about in the future. But until then, I'm going to keep my mouth shut before I get fired. Yeah, I was writing some tweets earlier this week. I made a tweet about it. I was so scared. I was like sweating. I was in like the social suite that we use, drafting up some tweets so that I could include them into a deck. See what they would look like as imitations. I was like, if I press this button right now, I am in big trouble.
Accidentally hit enter.
I was sweating
the case for a while, right? Like the amount of sprint review stuff. The amount of sprint review stuff we see on a week-by-week basis, and my response has been, I can't wait for the players to see this. Like you keep hiring up and like, you know, what you got all these people, and when's the new stuff coming out? And I'm like, oh, there's been stuff building up for so long, and I can't wait. You know, it's genuinely just like gets me excited every 2 weeks we do that sprint review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like it too. It just gets me pumped. So every other Thursday, you'll see us happier than normal, and that's why. All right, let's go through some announcements. We've got some questions as well, obviously. It wouldn't be much of a Q&A without them. But first of all, !Steam. Old School is now on Steam. You can unlock achievements, badges, trading cards, and more when you play using the brand new Steam client. So type !Steam to visit our store page today. We know that there have been some issues with linking and unlinking accounts with Steam as well. We want to give you some help, so use !Steam help for more info in regards to that. !Game update. This is from last week's game update because we had no update this week, so that we could be around to help support RuneScape. But we introduced an extra Tazhard challenge down in Moral Wreck with our latest game update from last week. So you can take on Tazar Ket Rax challenges and face up to 6 Taztok Jads. Oh my god. To earn yourselves a transmog for your pet Jad. Okay, at least it just says Jad there if you're successful. !Game update for more info. And then following on from that, competition. Look at this absolute beauty. This is the brick version of a KBD with some nice little extra features like a Dragonfire shield and I think is it some rune ore maybe? I think so. There's lots of other things that come in there as well. Oh, it's a blue party hat, I've just been informed. Definite party hat. We are running some competitions to give you a chance to get your hand on one of these KBD building sets that we have commissioned. So whether you're a creative or seasoned fighter, there is something for you. Find out more by using !Competition to get all the details. Okay, and then last announcement for today, !Update. So using !Update will give you some more info regarding the ongoing server issues. Use the command to find out more, along with a link to RuneScape's update post from yesterday. There are a very small amount of old school accounts that will be locked out. We mean really small accounts. But if you use !update, you'll be able to find out more. If you haven't had an email from us, don't worry, you are not affected. Pretty much is what you need to know. If you have anything you'd like to ask the team or myself, then please @OldSchoolRS for your questions. Now, moving on from there, we talked about some competitions. One of those competitions involved art. So the designer hat competition is still going on. If you are looking to get involved in that, you can post your entries on social using hashtag designer hat, I think it is. Or OSRS designer hat. Otherwise, just check out the news post. There's stuff in there. You should see !competition. We'll give you all the info you need for that anyway. All right, but we have some player creations that we want to go through. Not hat related, but some cool content nonetheless. So roll image number 1, please. And this is titled Close Roll in the Wilderness by Farage Tank from Reddit. Pretty spooky. I like how it's cool. Animated. Yeah. A little lightning in the background. Lightning in game.
I like to think. I love to think of stories with this stuff, and just the concerned look of the player character's face just makes me know that they got another wilderness step, you know?
Yeah, that is a proper, oh no. All right, moving into image 2. This one comes in from Asimura, also from Reddit, and this is titled, Made This of Everyone's Favorite Dragon. Oh, that is sick.
How do people draw?
Like playing. Well, you get a pencil or a pen, put it on some paper or any surface, in fact, Kieren. And do you know what? Actually, in fact, you can do it digitally as well now.
Dang, the technology these days. What I mean is, this is one of these things that I'm like, how do you draw this? You draw a circle and then you draw the rest of the dragon.
Where does it start? We need an artist to like. Do you know what I love seeing? If you ever see them, and I would love to have seen one for this, of like the time lapse videos of people doing drawings are absolutely incredible, especially with when they're not doing digital art and it is just all on paper. This one is super cool. But yeah, definitely blows my mind. I'm not creative enough. I'll stick to writing blogs and bad tweets. All right, roll image number 3, please. Coming in from OG Lucia, and this is the Prospector kit. It's adorable.
Oh my god, that's so good.
I'm a big fan of what's in the background as well. Real big fan. That is really, really super cute. I'm saving this link. I may be sending a DM. All right, and then roll image number 4, please. And this comes from Stumpy Nigel, which is a Caledoman.
See, this... Why?
Why not?
Yes, that's the question, really. Why not?
Between this and the last couple of pictures, it just screams the duality of man, right? You know, different ways to be creative.
Yeah, there's definitely something else. So thank you for that laugh.
This looks like one of those fancy, like, digital pieces of art, Ayiza.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They took it next level. You're right, Kieren. You're right. I'm glad that you're learning. Well spied. Well spied. Okay, so move... Oh, Husky, sorry.
Some digital art goes far enough to be called a meme, Kieren. I'm not sure if you're familiar.
Oh, right, don't give him too much info at once. Kieren was smiley today. Let's not ruin his day just yet, okay? We do actually have some art of our own to show off as well. You may have already noticed some of this if you were here at the start of the stream, which is for Tempoross, the new Fishing Skill Boss, which is coming out in 2 updates time, I believe. So not next week, but the week afterwards, Tempoross will be out. You get your hands on some tasty gear, and we have a whole new stream setup as well for it, which is pretty cool. Look at this, animations. Whoa, it's moving.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Like, it's the new background material, to be honest.
Yep, big fan. And we actually have one other thing that we can show you in regards to Tempoross, the Fishing Skill Boss. I believe a short video, which is the trailer/teaser that we have for the content. So if we could get that rolling, that would be fantastic. I love the little bonk off the sandwich lady there. No. You are not allowed to be that way.
The sandwich lady was bonking well before the memes, so.
Yeah, true, to be fair, I'll give you that. But some really great work there from our creative team. I love to see the little videos and the snippets that they do. I like the kind of comical direction as well of it. I think a lot of players will probably try and AFK Tempoross and have that same level of regret when they're engulfed in flames. We'll see. All right, we've got some questions anyway that we can go through. Hopefully we managed to get through them. However, there are a lot of questions. We decided to take the questions from last week's Q&A that we weren't able to do, which was postponed because of the issues that RuneScape and Old School were experiencing with the login servers. So let's get straight into it. And the first question comes from Jay Coronado, who asks, why are you guys taking new questions? According to Ayiza, this week's Q&A will be a catch-up week, as you guys have had other streams and have been unable to answer many of the previous questions. Well, Jay Coronado, seeing as you called me out, I may as well respond to you directly. Admittedly, last week was meant to be the catch-up week, and I forgot to tell the people that were putting together the questions for the stream that it was the catch-up week, so they went ahead and acted as if it was a normal Q&A. So it's my fault. I'm sorry. Next week's Q&A will be the catch-up week that we will go through the questions that we didn't get a chance to answer in the other streams. I am sorry. Please forgive me. The next question comes from O'Drizzy, and they ask, why is the 6th Jad challenge locked behind the Inferno? This seems like a ridiculous requirement. I understand it's going to be very challenging, and most people won't be able to complete it without having a similar skill required to complete the Inferno. But I think there are a decent amount of people who could do the Jad challenge for their pet without being able to complete the Inferno.
I think the main concern that we had, and Husky, maybe correct me wrong, was that the ability to practice 3 Jads and sort of be able to master that before you go through the Inferno and have to do it under pressure. Because if you do it in the Inferno, obviously it's very different, right? You've got through, an hour to 2 hours of waves, which are hard to make them way through in of itself. You're going to have Jad hands, you're going to be scared. It's a different experience. I mean, that said, I don't think it's the most critical thing to defend. If the community really were fine with us changing that, I'd be completely open to it myself. If we were to poll it and people wanted it, I'd be fine. But whether the community thinks we should defend what Triple Jad serves in terms of the Inferno, then we shouldn't change it. So, that's my view on it. I just don't particularly care either way.
I think it is one of the things where, I completely agree with what you said. Go to the community and find out what they say. I see both sides on it. I think people say the timings are different as well. And I hope I get this the right way around, because just chat will complain at me if I didn't. I think triples in the Inferno are on a 9-tick cycle, so evenly spaced 3 ticks apart, but these ones are on an 8-tick cycle, where it's not quite consistent. I can't remember which way around the ticks are lost. I think that's right. So it's not quite the same experience, but I do think for many, there's that idea of when you're progressing through the Inferno, or at least I can speak from my own experience, where you're getting through the waves, you're learning it, but you're still God, I've got to get past get wave 63 down consistently, and even then I've got triples, and that's terrifying, right? Until you get there, and at least for me, I was like, oh wait, this isn't actually as bad as I thought it was, right? And then I think I got it on my second triples attempt and stuff, and it is kind of that, as you said, it's part of the experience of learning the Inferno, that knowing you've got this huge hurdle coming up, and then there's Zuck after that. And I think out of them, I think that Zuck isn't an overly hard fight. It is just the pressure, right? Of I went through so much and got through triples and then blah blah blah. So yeah, I think that if you remove that, sorry, I know that might sound a bit pretentious. That's not what I mean at all. I mean I think Tobs, some of the things for Verzik could be harder than Zuck, but Verzik you could just go straight in and get practice and you get teammates to carry you, whereas Zuck is kind of just a solo experience. You've only got your own learnings and you're nervous, right? And as Kieren said, you've got hours probably to get there and limited supplies, right? So it's a completely different challenge, right? In fact, I think even at this point where I am, waves are the hardest part for me still, right? I feel if I just got to triples, I'm probably fine. And I think that yeah, I guess I'm kind of going off on a bit of a rant here at a tangent a little bit, but you get what I'm trying to say. That, no, it's not. But it comes down to if people just go in saying, oh, triples is easy, and they've never done it before, it probably makes that more accessible. But the content's been out for so long, maybe that's okay. Like, so TLDR, everything Kieren said, right? I think it's a thing where I see both sides. You'd want to ask the community, but that is a concern, and I don't think it's something we just wanted to do, if you know what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
I mean,
like,
it
you
wasn't
can never
something
go back
that
on
was.
that.
Yeah, I mean, we never proposed it in the original pitch when we polled the 6 Jad challenge, but admittedly, it was just one question that was like added on to the end of what was already the combat achievements blog. So maybe like it wasn't really set up in a way to kind of like be open to more suggestions. That being said, we've got plenty of polls that will be coming up in the future that maybe a question like that could fit into, and yeah, let the players decide, I guess. Cool. Thank you for that. All right, MPTRS asks, oh wait, no, I'm thinking it's the wrong question. The number's changed. Could we please see a recolor for the Blade of Saeldor, perhaps using the same crystals that are used to recolor the Crystal Crown? These are 500k each and would provide a slight gold sink if used as a one-time recolor. Currently, the Corrupted Blade is frequently mistaken for a Dragon Longsword or Scimitar. A high-tier endgame item such as the Blade deserves to be visually distinguishable from Dragon weapons.
Yeah, I'm for this idea. I've actually got it all devved in a test stream, right? You can use all the crystals. It hasn't got an artist approval that I've used the right combinations of colors because I just took from the crystal itself. I think this would be quite a cool way to give it its own unique thing, but just because I've got it in a test stream doesn't mean it would make it into the game. I plan to mention it in like the next ideation and be like, hey, do you guys think this is something we should do? If so, it's done here, and we could probably just poll it and present it to the players at some point. But yeah, I'm not opposed to that at all, right?
Cool. All right, that sounds good. We actually have. Can I talk about it? Well, we're going to be doing it at some point anyway. So like we will be looking at Poll 75 at some point soon in like the coming months. So I think we're going to be going for a general theme of PVM anyway regarding Poll 75. And that's purely because it fits in between like now and what we'd be doing in terms of like wilderness changes. Otherwise, I think we would have probably done Poll 75 as like PvP improvements. But seeing as it's going to be a separate project, it kind of makes sense to do PVM improvements before combat achievements. So yeah, we could look to include something like that in there, and that would also then fit with the 6 Jad challenge too that we just spoke about before. So we'll make sure those get included for discussion, at least internally, with the rest of the team. All right, next question comes from Sir Dude. Can Hydra get an animation indicating attack similar to Gauntlet? Counting mechanics suck farts. Thank you for that, Sir Dude. Yes, I know counting to 3 is easy, but it's repetitive and mind-numbing. Maybe a random number of range/magic attacks could be introduced with the visual animation instead of always 3 of each. Please say yes.
Yeah, there's multiple solutions to this, really. You could make the prayer check when it hits you rather than as it fires, as the alternative way of doing it, so that it's still every 3, but you've got a chance to react when you see it, and that way would work as well. I'm open to whatever.
I think that, yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a slightly different case to Gauntlet, because I see that gets brought up in comparison because we did it for the Gauntlet. And I think that, like, Hydra, there's basically no other way to take damage, right, apart from messing up the prayer. I think maybe standing on a vent, but that's, like, so niche. And it's also, like, more of a consistent grind, whereas Gauntlet just felt like you put in all that work to get your gear to get to that point, so maybe we can be a little nicer with animations. Not to mention, I think that, like, it's like the whole, like, there's so many other things going on anyway in the Gauntlet that, like, sure, you see the animation, but are you still, even with the animation changing, going to have time to change your prayers while still dodging the tornadoes and stepping on the right tiles and making sure you don't walk under the boss and all this stuff, right? So I think that Hydra, in essence, is a much simpler fight, so maybe that could stay in there, but again, I'm not precious about it. It's just that I think that those are, like, considerations, right? And yes, I said right.
Yeah. To be honest, like, I'm happy for bosses to have variety in terms of how they handle their prayers and attack switching. Like, we've got ones that change randomly. We've got ones that, hit you and check the prayer as it hits you. There's ones that indicate beforehand, like Jad or what we've done with the Gauntlet. So, like, in reality, there's only so many options of how you can actually distribute the different types of attack. And so it's nice that Hydra offers something different, and it's not for everyone, but some people are fine with it as well. So that's why I suggest, actually, I think the better way to go is to do the, if you manage to catch your player in time, but say your attack, you still get out of it, even if you didn't count. And so, but if people want to count, they could still go with that.
I think some sort of compromise like that. And I did like the suggestion saying, hey, let's not just make it always 3 and then always have an animation. It was, hey, it's going to be random and you have to watch for the animation, right? Which is different to just adding it and keeping it the same, you know? So I think like some sort of compromise like that. So it's not just, okay, I lost track and I'm watching something on the side and was it that 2 or 3? It's more like there's just a little bit of like nuance to that instead, you know?
I think if anything, because as much as I personally would prefer to like not have to counter 3 every single time, because I do agree that side of things is mind-numbing and a bit repetitive. At the same time, I wouldn't want any changes to just inherently make the Hydra easier, because it's a pretty damn good money maker for consistent GP. Yeah, and that's something I'd be cautious of. But I don't see how, you know, yeah, just be cautious of it. I don't see how it would have a massive effect on it, but as long as we just kept that in mind with whatever we do. If anything, that is. Cool. Grizzly Chump asks, any chance we could revisit the idea that was proposed for blue dragon scales? Essentially, you'd be able to get blue dragon hides and use a knife on said hides to extract scales from it. This process would remove the blue dragon hides that have been poured in from Vorkath, provide a new way to obtain scales rather than the monotonous task of collecting them, which is just awful, and wouldn't be financially beneficial, but would provide a convenient option.
Don't know about the implementation. It ties the 2 prices together, which I don't know which one's cheaper, and it would depend on like how many scales you get per hide and all that stuff. There would be more complexity to it. The question definitely feels more coming from an Iron Man who's like, okay, I don't like that I've got to go to Taberley Dungeon repeatedly or like Myth Guild and collect all my blue dragon scales, which is frustrating. But Herblor's got kind of a lot of little things like that where it's not even a long time you generally need to do it for all the land times you're going to get. Maybe like an hour or 2, and it's just like, okay, I've got a boring hour or 2. I'm all for exploring the option, but I don't know about the specific implementation without looking into numbers more. And the worst thing you could happen is like crash the price of like blue dragon hides, and like, well, you can't really crash the price because they're alcohol. Right? So it's it's
just if someone's got like a massive stack of blue dragon scales, like maybe they'll go up, but are they really going to go up in price because they just get picked up off the floor anyway?
Remember a few years ago at RuneFest, we talked about the concept of like player-owned farming, but with animals. And you'd like grow up your own little blue dragons and get scales get the scales that way. Like, and a bunch of other things that you could do with that with different creatures. Like, you know, you grow your own spiders and you get red spiders' eggs from them and things like that. Like, we talked about that at RuneFest and that core sort of concept, and we never did anything with it in the end, but it is cool, and it can help to provide these sort of, you know, resources that are currently just go and pick them up from the floor in an interesting way. Because like I quite like the idea of growing animals and having to, you know, look after them. So, you know, I know everyone's saying RuneScape 3 because RuneScape 3 did something very similar. But, you know, we also talked about it at RuneFest years ago too. Because the reality is it's a good core concept. The content we do would be probably delivered very differently to how RuneScape have done it. Just, it's not going to be the same piece of content. We'd do it in a way that suits old school if we were to do it. I mean, I'm not saying we are doing that in the near future or anything, but I think, you know, look in terms of looking for a solution for these things that could provide these things in an interesting way. Yeah, there's potential there.
Can I be devil's advocate for a moment?
Yeah.
Sure.
I was just going to say, like, if it's a problem now, and if the, you know, like as cool as growing animals sounds, and it genuinely does sound cool, how far away is that? And like, realistically, is it something that we could wait until to be able to turn around and solve the problems if they do exist?
I think that the biggest thing, like probably the most important word that the player had there was monotonous. And I think like we've done solutions to that, like for Snapegrass in the past, where it's not just picking stuff up from the ground, because that is not good content. And I think that the truth of that is that like the Iron Man game mode highlights those like issues like more so than anyone else, right? Someone else just go, I'm not picking them up, I'm going to go to the Grand Exchange and get them. But like people in the chat are saying like add it to a drop table, and like isn't that a problem that we've like feel like we've overdone? Like people complain there are too many resources that come from drop tables, and I'm not saying that like picking up from the ground is better than drop tables. It comes down to, do we explore a different solution like Kieren said, but maybe there's a middle ground solution that we haven't thought of yet that is like not as expensive as like a new skill, right? But like somewhere in between. Do you know what I mean?
Dragon shearing.
And at least from the Iron Man perspective, like yes, you need anti-fires for some
Like
content. Oh, sorry. Dragon shearing. I mean, it's an interesting thought, right? Like a quest line where you do that and you get the ability to do it or something as like a short-term thing. But like, I think like, what was I going to say? Oh, I lost what I was going to say.
Sorry.
As an Iron Man, right? It comes down to using your Lantidimes, right? And there are other options. There's Potato Cactus, which you can farm. There are, like, you can do Halflight Queen and get a bunch of drops for that, and you get the 2 goals at once with your Wine of Zamorak. So there are other options out there if it's just a case of going for the Herblore XP. And, like I said, you don't need all that many anti-fires, even if you're doing a lot of Vorkath.
That's fair. I think we spent quite a bit of time on this. I think, in general, we're not, like, against the idea of making it potentially more accessible to get them. My question though is like, what's the difference in terms of monotony between picking up dragon scales and sitting there at a bank and cutting dragon hides? It's the exact same thing. It's like you're just saving your time of not having to pick the scales up because you already got the hides from passive PVM grind.
I think the point would be like, you get the hides and that's the exciting part, and getting the scales would be the quick part, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but essentially it's like, you're just saying that I just want to remove the time taken to pick them up, and instead I'm going to transfer that time taken to cut the scale, to cut the hides. I don't see where the major benefit is, like, other than you don't have to run and pick them up, but you're still going to have to cut the hides. It just makes it AFK then, right? Is that what people want? They just want an AFK way of getting scales? And if so, then fair enough, that's the answer for it. That's just what I'm trying to like figure out, because I don't see it being less monotonous.
That's why I kind of said that, like, I'm not sure about the solution. Do you know what I mean? And I also think part of my answer was like, yes, it kind of sucks, but I don't think it's like we're forcing Iron Men to do tens of hours for this, and this is the only way to use their Lantidimes, and it sucks, and it's maybe a huge problem, right? Do you know what I mean? I think there are other options. And it is like one of those, like, I feel like a lot of this stuff is like, is it a priority for us to fix quickly? No. Is it something we could look at in the future when we're exploring future content as a potential reward for something? Sure, maybe, right?
Maybe. Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's move on. That's enough about scales for now. Hopefully you found that discussion insightful. I certainly did, at least. Grumpy Scape basically relates to me. How do you guys feel about the exploration skill proposal? Have you had any discussion over its practical aspects and community feedback? This was one that got posted on Reddit a while back, I think.
Yeah, I responded to it as well, saying I loved the proposal, but that was at the time of like having a quick skim through, and I'm not saying I now don't, right? I'm just saying like ingrained in like light of that comment. I have had a look through it, and I do like that when we're looking at skills, I think it's very good to have an identity and a clear way of doing it, which I think this definitely has, and I think that that's something we even share with like new players have a problem of like they like have finding their way around the world. Do you know what I mean? It's such a big world, and this could provide some direction to that. I think that's really good. I think the design was really well put together as well. Like it literally followed our interface styles and components, and you could see that being in the game. And I did like that all the rewards had like a very consistent like thematic to it of the Explorer. Like the player-owned cabins felt very much like secret bases from Pokemon. You know, I think it was Gen 3. Like that was such a cool idea of this little personalized themed space that's not like a player-owned house in terms of the versatility it offers, but like you get this cool thing. I think the thing that's like these designs, I suppose, should always be looked at in giving you an idea of what you could do. But the problem is that like you need to sell people on the concept before going into huge in-depth specifics. Because like I think some of my first thoughts reading that were like, is it going to just become a checklist of going, okay, like literally how to train it, go to this place, go to this place, go to this place, or is it actually going to encourage the actual idea of exploring, right? Do you know what I mean? And will players optimize it and just say, I'm only going to do the bits that I need to. So I think like if I was to take on, if someone said to me, hey, like Husky, go and we want to pitch the exploration skill to the players and look at, that would be the things that I'd want to look at and like challenge the most and say, is this really accomplishing the goal of getting a player to explore and like actually making it interesting, or is it just going to be like super optimized, which like our players do that anyway, but like you want to make sure that you have the key feeling of it. But I did really like the proposal, and I think there's a lot more to dig into than I could possibly do so on a live stream, right? Because when you get questions like this, it's like, what did you think of it? And your brain goes to, what are the things that I thought were slight problems with it? As opposed to the things that were really good, because there were a lot of really cool things in there. And like, as much as like specific rewards, do we need a 30 healing food that overfeels? Maybe not, but like that doesn't even matter for the context of the skill, right? That's just a suggested reward, you know?
I like a lot of the thoughts that went into that design and exploration. It certainly, and really, I look at these largely like there's a lot of good details, but really, it serves as super great inspiration for what it could become, with more time put onto it, etc. But like something it made me think about, and maybe this isn't even exploration itself, but like the idea of random events and interesting things that happen in the world, like. What if we had good random events? Random, and not to say they're not good, right? Everyone likes genies, but the reality, most of the random events were designed to deter bots, right? Originally, they were meant to be anti-macro events. And so, why not have random events that are more interesting, entertaining, useful, etc.? It provides some interesting gameplay element as well. Anyway, sorry, just a thought, but what do people actually think about a new skill in general? Like, obviously, the time we've come around the conversation again and again in the past. Right, we've obviously pitched 3. It's been a little while since we pitched Warding now, but I mean, can we do a straw poll? Just literally yes, no. Do you want to see a new skill come to old school RuneScape? So I'm just curious. I'm curious what at least the Twitch chat think.
I will leave
not
that down
necessarily exploration, but yeah, the skill in general.
Just in general. Yeah, I'll leave it down to the CM in the background. Hopefully they can put that together for us.
The more I read into, like, I was thinking of this a lot when I was reading the design for exploration. It reminded me a lot of like some of the things that RuneScape did with the archaeology, right? And I feel like you could go down a similar route with like the player's quite literally on a journey with story and characters to like 99, and these random encounters could be in that vein. You could shape it in that way, and I think that like. Because we got a lot of feedback with like wording, like nobody wants just another production skill, you just another buyable, do it, right? And then like that was like a big core bit of feedback I think people just didn't like. So maybe it does need to be a skill that's kind of like a huge expanded mini game with like links to other skills. Maybe that's what a skill needs to be. I think that's what a lot of people liked about sailing, if I'm being honest, right? Like, so maybe there's some food for thought. Maybe like this is definitely like something that I've taken a write down, like, hey, is this something I could look at in an ideation and present to the team? But it always gets like through the there is that blocker, which is why we're doing the straw poll of, does the community want a skill in any capacity whatsoever? Because if that poll isn't at like, and I'm making up numbers here, I haven't done the statistics and maths, but like if that number say is like 76%, 77%, right? No skill is going to pass, because you will never get all of those 77% or 76% agreeing on one skill. You need that number to be at like the 80s, right? 80s to 90s, right? To actually ever get a skill through the poll system. So that's the kind of blocker for any skill, but you actually cannot fault the player for the amount of detail and design and effort that went into this, because it's phenomenal, right? It's really easy to read. You get a good idea of what it is. And there is still a lot of room to explore spins on it, right?
My idea that for a skill is to do a kind of Sim City meets old school RuneScape. You manage your own like new village or settlement in old school. You gotta build up the infrastructure. You got to go and get people gathering materials to help build the different shacks and whatnot in your village. You start with something that maybe looks more like Barbarian Village, but eventually maybe you turn into Falador, and you've got to think about where you put the long haul so everyone could be happy about having a local bar to go to. Like, you know, depends what style you go for, but that sort of thing, I think, could be really cool to have as a thing in old school RuneScape.
Kieran's idea of a new skill is to make everyone a developer in old school. You create your own old school RuneScape, and that's how you level up.
So you create a civilization, and your civilization needs to vote 75% to get the long haul in the position that you propose it to be. It's literally a meta.
Imagine you start polling your citizens.
Oh my god. Well, I love this where this went. I just want to apologize for the Husky because I was creasing during your speech. I wasn't laughing at you. I'm just really childish, and the results were at 73% yes. And obviously, you can't see 73 and not laugh. But it does look like 74% of people in Twitch chat would like to see a new skill come to old school RuneScape at some point. So, we usually get around about the same result anyway, regardless of the demographic at the time. Even when we've done kind of like the bigger scale surveys, we know there's appetite for skills. That's why we've pitched them in the past before, right? And it seems like that's still not changed. People do still want to see a new skill. Just making sure it's the right one and probably at the right time. Because I think the biggest part is, you want a new skill, but when do you want a new skill? Do you want it now or in 2-3 years' time? And I think I said the last time this came up that I personally think we've got so much more stuff that we can be doing before we explore adding a new skill. However, I don't think that means we shouldn't ever consider it or even look into it. And the earlier we do it, probably the better. But for now, let's move on to the next question, which comes in from VapeLord97XDXD. When does Tempoross launch? From the previous stream, it looked done. Can we try it out on a beta world? 2 weeks' time. Not this week, the week afterwards, which I think is the 24th of March, is it? Yes, 24th of March, it will be out. What comes out next week?
Shooting
Swing
Stars.
House. That's it, Shooting Stars next week, and then Tempoross will be the week afterwards.
Is this a planted question, Ayiza? Like, halfway through the stream, VapeLord XDXD,
hey, look, it's
like
convenient.
Community Manager came up with the name.
What do you mean? I don't even do the questions.
What do you think the odds are? What do you think the odds are? If I was going to
put a name, I'd choose something better than VapeLord. Sorry, VapeLord97. I'm sure that you've thought a lot about that name, but I'd like to think I've got a bit more creativity.
What do you think the odds are that VapeLord was born in 1997?
XD. All right, next question. From Ket OMGRS. They are asking, with the necessity of PvP for the longevity of the game, when can we see dedicated updates / fixes to the wilderness, the return of Bounty Hunter, and integrity updates for PvP that are long overdue? Ooh, that is a big one.
So we are going to be looking at spending a decent amount of time on PvP in the near future. We've got a couple of months against it for the team to look at it. I think I can't remember if we're looking at Pool 75 first or we're going to look at the batch of wilderness stuff. But we literally had meetings this week to start looking into that, start pulling the work together. There's some bigger questions we want to answer, like that we can come back to the community with, like where does the wilderness start to fit into the bigger picture? Is that Bounty Hunter? Is that not Bounty Hunter? What do we do about skull tracking? What do we do about single way zones? Do we make it single ways plus? Like there's those bigger questions that take some time. So the design team's going to spend like a week or so just starting to flesh out some of those answers to those questions and start turning into a list of different jobs that we can actually start to do and develop. So that's coming up in the nearish future.
Mm-hmm. I think I've been saying go on.
On you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been saying to a lot of people on Twitter especially that would be looking to start talking about that in April, some kind of time, around April anyway. So yeah, I imagine that next month, once we've got together internally and made sure that the things that Kieren just raised are things that we know the answers to ourselves, or at least know the questions that we want the answers to, we'll be doing like a series of surveys and you'll see some blogs coming out from us. And I believe that we'd be looking at around about May time for development to kind of like kick off for wilderness changes then. So not a huge amount of time to wait, but still a little bit of time. But it's one of those that, it's not very often, to be completely honest with you, as you all point out that we do look at PvP. So we want to use the time from now until then to just make sure that the questions we want to ask, we get good answers to, so that we're not in this position of tell us what you think, and then tell us what you think again a year later, and then tell us what you think again a year later. So yeah, hopefully we can avoid that this time round. And then for like bigger PvP things, I've seen it mentioned in the chat a few times. We've already said before that Deadman mode will be coming back this year. It's going to be later this year, so like, you know, the second half rather than the first half, but you will be seeing Deadman at some point as well. So you got that to look forward to. The only thing that at the moment there's no plan for, but it doesn't mean that there will never be a plan for, is with Bounty Hunter. But there's members of the team that have got their own ideas in terms of things that we can do to tackle that. I've got one myself that I spoke about in streams before, and I hope to submit over in part of ideation. So yeah, lots of things on there, and I know it's things you've all heard us say before, but it's there on the roadmap, so you just have to hopefully, you know, believe in us and believe in the system, and actions will speak louder than words. Yeah. And go on, Husky.
What we're going to do in this... sorry, yeah, go on, Husky.
Oh. I was just going to say that I hate the idea of, like, promising, and it always feels like empty promises, because I know that that's the thing that, like, players get annoyed at, right? Because it's like, oh, there's something coming, but, oh, is it coming? And that sort of idea. But I have seen, like, a good handful of ideas presented in ideation for PvP that look really cool, right? And some of them have been like, we've got feedback internally that says, hey, have you thought about this, and what can you try and come up with solutions for that? And ultimately, right, like, it just means that ideas are being thought of. They're pretty cool. But like, PvP has a lot of like issues that like Bounty Hunter really highlighted, right? The idea that if you have like some sort of monetary rewards, is it gameable and boostable, right? Like, and if you balance it around bots, it makes it terrible for legitimate players, right? And there's all these things that are like, you know, I've read some pretty creative like solutions to this stuff, and some of them you just won't know how they work until they go into the main game. But like, it is that, like, yes, ideas are somewhere in the pipeline, and some of them will get dropped, and some of them like could move forward and stuff, and that's just the ideation system that we have, you know. So I know that people say like it feels like nothing's coming, but like, at least when you have full vision of everything on the inside, we do see things, right? Like, and I know that, like I said with the start of my statement, that doesn't help players now, and there's a track record of dropping on that promise. But like I think it's worth saying to people, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always had good intentions. At least I believe we've always had good intentions in the past talking about PvP. It's just that other things genuinely seem to have came about. But I think this time round we have a lot of like good juicy stuff that's come in. You know, we're looking at tackling Rove Caves, the Wilderness Slayer Caves, general wilderness changes as well, wilderness bosses potentially too. So a lot of the areas that we know are, you know, problematic, and part of the equipment rebalance, you know, that highlighted some of the bigger issues in PvP that have been long-standing for years. You know, with Black Dragonhide and its imbalance in there, and obviously the Din's Bulwark, which, yeah, someone's going to be angry that I mentioned it again, and it's, yeah. Anyway, you know, it is one of those, and I'm just hopeful, like I said earlier, that actions will speak louder than words this time around, and you'll see that there's a lot that we do want to do for good. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Kieren, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right, so next question comes in from Dr. Love Gaming. After viewing the Shooting Stars blog, a lot of people have mentioned the uselessness of the Mining Capes skill perk. Is this something you as a team would be willing to look into?
Yeah, what do you want it to do? Like, what do you want the Mining skill cape to do? Because, yeah, I'm absolutely up for that. I think, am I correct in saying it's sort of similar to just like the Varrock body sort of thing right now?
It's like an extra chance to get an ore, and I think that stacks with the mining gloves. If I'm right, I'm reading the wiki quickly. Sorry, I'm not an infinite knowledge of everything in the game. Yeah, so it stacks with Varrock armor, gloves, etc. I think is the issue that it doesn't stack in the blog, and maybe there were concerns about that being too powerful. I don't, like, none of us are on the team that worked on Shooting Stars, so I think it's a hard question to ask to answer, if that makes sense.
Wait, what? Say it again.
I just think it's a hard question for us to answer because none of us were on the Shooting Stars team, I think. I think the problem is that it probably doesn't stack with the cape, but I'm not sure because I don't know what the concern is.
Oh, it does. Yeah. The boost from the ring stacks with everything. So it would stack with any other boosts that are available. So it goes hand in hand with that. I think it just basically highlighted that the ring actually is probably better than the mining cape. And like maybe people think that the mining cape warrants more of a buff.
All right, okay.
I think the mining cape could easily teleport to the guild, like a lot of the other skill capes do for their guilds. It's a very good thing for it to do.
Give you a free bronze pickaxe like the Herblore cape and Fletching cape do for their things. Like, there's little things it can do, but I think skill capes are never really meant to be like game-breaking perks. I know some of them are definitely way better than others. You know, like I think the Runecraft one comes to mind. Crafting is, well, ridiculous. So, and the thing is, crafting isn't even a crafting perk. It's a banking perk. So.
You know, I'm always like the moody one, the Mardy one, the miserable, grumpy mod here. Like I'll just be blunt. I just don't think that they should be super strong. Like it's cool, you got 99 mining, you got a nice little perk for doing it. Like you didn't get 99 mining to get the mining cape. You were going to get 99 mining anyway, and it's just a nice extra benefit that you get as a result. So I don't know. Like if people really want to look at improving it, then fair. But like it's just an extra little perk. And you know how much what happens in like 1 year time is like, oh, okay, you change it from 5% to 10%. Oh, 10%'s too weak. It should be 15%. Is it this constant cycle that just keeps going on? That's what I would want to avoid, but it doesn't mean that there's not potential for a little bit of extra, maybe quirky perks that it could have, but just straight up buffing it for no reason other than it feels weak compared to a ring. It's like...
Yeah, I feel like 99 mining, you get it because it's one of your last 3 skills to get maxing. So at that point, you probably don't care about the mining cape and you've got a max cape. I know that's a joke, right? Because there are probably plenty of people out there with like mining as their first cape, or they're, you know, people who actually love mining and the model mining chill. But like, I think that like, I haven't heard anybody who felt like unhappy or like, okay, I got a 99. Like, I know some people who've got tons of them in the past, you know, but like generally getting a 99 is like something you take a screenshot of and share with your friends and go, hey, look, this is awesome. And nobody reacts and you feel sad anyway. But, you know, like at least you feel like you want to share it, you know.
Maybe there's some scope, like I saw people in the chat, maybe there's some scope to like just increase the quality of ores that it will work on, because like really who is mining adamant when you've got 99 mining? But yeah, that would be kind of cool. But if it was increasing XP or just making it like outright super strong, I'm just going to carry on being miserable, I'm sorry. However, I will support anything that needs to be supported within reason, okay? Just quickly, I want to interject here. There's a message that I need to just make sure you all know before you leave us. Tonight, we are going to be doing a login server reboot that is expected to take around 10 to 20 minutes. So this is some forewarning for you in regards to that. We will be putting out messages on our social platforms as well as a news post to advise. And that means that players logging in, out, and hopping worlds will be affected. It's likely that if you log out during that time, you won't be able to log back in again. There's no anticipated impact in terms of normal gameplay, but for the sake of 10 to 20 minutes, maybe it would be wise to do some bank standing skills that aren't dangerous, just in case. You know, this would be a great time to be knifing your blue dragon hides into scales if it existed, I guess. In the meantime, Fletch. Cool. So that's that. Look out for socials. We'll be posting it out.
Good time to start getting supper on, right?
Yeah, there you go. Take a walk, stretch yourselves, stretch your legs, get the blood flowing. All right, next question. So this comes from Serpentaxed OSRS. Does the proposed 30k XP an hour from shooting stars in the blog suggest that a player will mine 1 star in a 2-hour period on one world and gain approximately 60,000 experience from that star? Or does it account for only active time, e.g. like farming EHP rates are calculated? Whew. Someone take the reins.
I'm hoping you know the
I don't know.
answer,
I don't know off the top of my head because I've not been involved in the project enough to know. So, you know, right. we can get the answer and make sure we clarify.
Okay, I'll tell you what I told people. Yeah. So I have an answer that I gave people whilst I was doing the rounds of feedback on the blog. I didn't put the initial blog together, but I did help out with feedback gathering and some responses. And when I was speaking to Mod Ed, he was saying that the 30k XP an hour is based around the assumption that one person would be mining you'd spend between 15 and 30 minutes mining a star, but that 30k XP an hour would be based off you mining stars for that hour duration, I do believe. So, yeah. There or thereabouts, something like that. You'll find out on next Wednesday anyway, because it comes out next Wednesday. But yeah, it was basically you'd spend about between 15 and 30 minutes is the average time that you'd expect someone to be mining a star for. It will obviously be longer if you're doing it solo. But even with that taken into account, that's where the 30k XP an hour is based around. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, then we'll look to get a little bit more detail and just tweet us out on the release or something like that, and we can hopefully get back to you on that too. And we will, of course, post-release be doing any feedback changes and stuff that we need to, tweaks and such. If it is way out, then, we'll adjust things accordingly like we would with any other update. So, yeah. Next question. This one comes in from Hooty OSRS. Chambers of Xeric came out in 2017. Inferno came out in 2017. The Theatre of Blood came out in 2018. Was there any reason to discontinue working on high-end PVM for what will soon be 3+ years? Was it due to a large amount of the player base not interacting with the content? Power creep? Not a priority? While yes, combat achievements and 6 Jads will provide a certain amount of content, this isn't something that will have any replayability and will be completed relatively quickly. So if it's okay, I'll quickly just mention something that Mod Sween had put together, and then I'll open the floor for further discussion. So Mod Sween has said here, it's clear there's a big appetite for endgame content, and we've, in my opinion, got the schedules wrong. Second to that, we've had content since Inferno and Theatre of Blood, but perhaps we didn't give a clear enough thought to what we wanted to do, and for how long. So for example, since Theatre of Blood, we have had things like the Alchemical Hydra, Gauntlet, and the Nightmare, but players will still point to Theatre of Blood as the last big PVM release, and that's entirely on us. That's what you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think there is. I agree with a lot of what Sween said there. Myself, I think the balance of content is quite a hard thing to get right? Because there's a whole ton of different communities. I mean, PvP players likely feel very similar, right? For good reason that there's not been enough attention paid to it. But I think speaking to the content we have done, like Gauntlet and Nightmare maybe more particularly, it's not like Gauntlet wasn't ambitious in terms of trying to create something new and interesting. And same with Nightmare, it was quite ambitious in scope of what we tried to do with it. However, it's clearly not scratched that itch, and for various reasons that we were well aware of, because we have reviewed these projects, we've done internal retrospectives about what they achieved, what they didn't achieve, etc. And so we need to learn from that ourselves as well, right? Why have things like Theatre of Blood had a much longer lifespan? Well, firstly, yes, they're a raid. Naturally, raids is going to provide more than a single boss anyway. But also a raid takes significantly more dev time. I mean, something like Theatre of Blood took like 5 months to 6 months to develop. And endgame players are the ones who can play it, right? So you're doing something quite expensive for a fairly small audience in terms of the old school player base as at large. So we want to be smart. We want to try and get it right. But there's room for doing single bosses. I say like Nightmare in terms of a group boss, but we got to get them right as well. But also, we do realize we should do raids again in the future too. And we have every intention to. But I would also say we probably went a bit too fast. If you look at that, Chambers of Xeric in the same year as Inferno and Theatre of Blood straight after that, that was probably quite quick as well for how much gear progression we had, and how much effort we as a dev team, and think about how small the dev team was back then as well. That was a huge amount of time we put into just those sort of projects. So, yeah, it's something we're very aware of. It's something we've been discussing internally about how can we get this into our schedule, how can we handle this sort of content, what's our strategy around it, etc. Some of the bigger questions involved. But you've rightly pointed out, like things like combat achievements, I think is one of the best things we can do. That's of a sort of different ilk that gives something for high-end PVM players, but also we need something new as well in the future. And I'm not against even revisiting the Nightmare and seeing what else we can do with Nightmare. what else we can do with Theatre of Blood. Like, I mean, people bring up hard mode Theatre of Blood a lot. Similar with Nightmare, what more interesting things could you do with that to revitalize it? I think Nightmare did too much at once with the trying to do a God War style drop table, which I don't think it really met that goal in one sense, right? And also being far away from a bank, so that it wasn't just a teleport to your POH, teleport back to the boss sort of system. And so it took you a while to get there. You fight it. There's obviously we can talk about the boss mechanics, but I'm just thinking about the way you interact with the content. It takes you a while to get there. You largely, most teams stay for you can manage a few kills, and people are needing to rebank. There's a huge run and bank time, so you're spending most of your time probably arguably not even killing the boss. And then, as much as it might try to be a God War style drop table, which in essence, right, you get so much of your value from when you get those big drops. It does achieve that, but you're getting next to nothing in the meantime, which means you do have a huge level of how unsatisfying it is. God Wars drops commonly, and the reason it can drop commonly is because it's straight up best in slot equipment, and everyone wants Bandos Chestplate and Bandos Tassets, hence why they're still holding a good price, right? Even though Brador drops them, you'll get one every few hours. Nightmare you're going to be at for a long time, arguably, before you get a good loot. So yeah, there's a bunch of problems I think that fed into Nightmare that kind of led to it having that, that it didn't scratch that itch. It's not something that people felt like they wanted to go and spend weeks and weeks at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think because I think this is an important discussion that's been very prevalent in the community for I would say the last couple months, 2-3 months maybe, and then even before that there was trickles of Raids 3 when, right? I think that you're absolutely right about Nightmare. I mean, that was I worked kind of on that project. It was both leagues and I was assisting Nightmare, if that makes sense. And I think it was one of the other things that I've spoken quite a lot to Mod Arcane about is Nightmare's a very scripted fight, if you know what I mean. It has very specific special attacks that require a very specific but not actually all that difficult interaction in a way that it just doesn't hold your attention for a long period of time. It's not very good content for the hundreds of hours it takes to get its drops, right? Not to mention the issues with scaling and stuff, so it's not even worth doing above 5-man, so why is it pitched as a huge group boss, right? So there's lots of issues with it. And I think players kind of see it as we keep saying there's no PVM stuff and think that we're just being silent and turn a blind eye. We have these discussions all the time internally. We go, are we actually releasing stuff often enough? What can we do if we don't have time for a raid? Are there alternative options that we do have time for with the roadmap without suddenly killing a project that we're still planning to do, right? And combat achievements, as Kieren said, is a good example of that, right? And there are other examples in ideation state that I'm excited to eventually hopefully bring to the players, assuming there's team approval. But there's nothing that ultimately you've got slots in the roadmap, and players just see it as it's an entirely blank slate, but they don't see that we've got a bigger picture, and if we put something in, something else goes, right? And that's the constant battle with roadmaps, that you've got people on a team with a ton of different opinions of what should be on there and different things they present to ideation, and it all just comes down to having Kieren and you guys, for example, actually saying, what are we going to do? And as Alex said, perhaps the mark has been missed over that last year, year or two, right? So it's definitely we hear the feedback on that, and PvPers are telling us the same, right? That and I've spoken a little bit internally to this to people. My perfect vision of and this is kind of idealistic, so take it with a grain of salt, is that you could go to a RuneFest and announce 5 projects, and there's a different player group in mind for each of those projects. So PvPers, you're getting this at some point in this year. You know that this is going to be worked on. PVMers, you're getting this. Skillers, you're getting this, etc. Right? And you end up hitting all the boxes. Quest people, you're getting this next quest. And what this means is that in the pipeline, everyone has something that they know is coming that they're looking forward to, because that's what keeps people in the game. It's knowing that there's some content coming, but thinking that there's no content coming for them makes people leave, right? So that's kind of what that would be like my like sort of idealistic approach I'd hope we can get to. And with us like upscaling the team, like very recently, I think you guys have seen like new devs. There's like a training part where it's like, okay, we need to train the new devs to go up to it. Some of the senior people are taking on training. We have way more teams to be able to see and do this kind of thing. But like we're also still like kind of COVID slowed us all down and we're all working from home, so that impacts productivity. We're still trying to commit, like keep up the promise to the commitments that we made at the last RuneFest. Like you guys still haven't seen Group Iron Man yet. You guys still haven't seen clans, right? All of this stuff is like, unfortunately, that gets put back. So all these like, we're trying to get all these new devs in and like, you know, like try and like get people in and trained up. And you can't just take someone and go, hey, you did your training, now go do Raids 3. Right? Some of these pieces of content that people are seeing like are just more suited for like giving people experience in development, giving people a chance to go through that like sort of life cycle of a project, for saying like, hey, you've got to go through design, implementation, estimates, get review from players, communicate to players about it, blah, 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 right? That was a huge section, but like I hope that kind of gives some sort of like, that's like my thoughts on it, right? And it is such a difficult thing to get right, because you're always going to have players fighting for, can you please work on this thing? Can you please work on this thing? Can you please work on this thing? And hopefully us upscaling the dev team allows us to do that. But like, things like that never move quickly. And even then, there's projects in the background that we're alluded to at the start of the stream that we're still super excited to tell you guys about, right? So like, yeah. I don't know what more I could say on that.
Oh, thank you both for it. There's one point that I don't think either of you touched on, and I don't want to go into too much detail because we are over time now, but I think it is worth it, is that the way I see it is that I think the imbalance has been the problem here, as opposed to the content that we've been offering recently. Because Kieren touched on the fact, and it's mentioned, you know, by Hootie as well in the question, that, you know, Chambers, Inferno, and Theatre of Blood all came out in a relatively like short space of time between each other. But at what cost? The cost was that there was nothing added for new players or mid-level players, apart from really small, meaningless kind of like changes. And while, you know, the higher level player base that are at end game stage is typically, you know, that type of content is seen as meaningless to them. Like, the game is growing. The game has been growing considerably for the last 8 years, and it continues to do that. And we're looking at going into new platforms and such. So I'm not going to say that, you know, we got it right, because I don't think we did personally. I think there definitely should have been more of a focus in our roadmap to incorporate end game content. But I wouldn't want to turn around and say that I regret the kind of content that we've been adding into the game, because a lot of it is, you know, targeted towards mid-level where it has been severely lacking. And I draw a contrast towards RuneScape. And, you know, there's a lot of players, especially our content creators, that were, you know, full-time old school creators that are playing RuneScape at the moment. And some of our high-level old school players are playing RuneScape and having a great time, because there's so much content for them to go and explore that they've never done before. You know, the game is filled with it from early game to end game. And you know why? It's because they added a lot of content from early game to end game, and that meant early game content, mid game content, mid to end game, and then full end game. So you imagine what the experience is for a new player coming into old school when that content really isn't there. Not to say there isn't content, because that obviously is. Like, we all got to where we are now, and the people that are at end game got there by doing things. But in terms of variety, like, RuneScape has a huge amount of variety. It's a great game for that. It has so much content available to it. Because they've had 20 years of development to add that all in. You know, we are still scratching on the surface 8 years down the line, where I don't think we've really explored all the different areas that we can add content into and such. So yeah, I think the problem has been a lack of balance over which types of players we're serving, but also at the same time, not having a RuneFest to announce our plans has obviously made things pretty difficult for our players to kind of like get invested, you know, into and really believe that something is coming. And I think that's something that we will be changing soon. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to announce some plans at least, and slowly over the course of the next few months, you know, we'll start to peel away the layers, and hopefully it will start to make a lot of sense. I don't want to say too much more than that though. Yeah. But I just wanted to make that point, is that, yeah, I don't think like any of us should necessarily say that, you know, we definitely shouldn't have done what we did and brought this content out. It's a waste of time. Because if it was a waste of time, the game wouldn't carry on growing. And there are a lot of people that are really excited for stuff that's came out. I know people meme that are at high level, oh, Tempoross, great, that's the new boss for us. But for every one person that says that, there are 10 people that are like, when's Tempoross coming out? I can't wait for it. This is exactly what I wanted. I want to play with my friends and such. There is reason behind it. It's just, yeah, apologies that balance hasn't really been there. But I think it's something that we're aware of. We're not saying this on stream because we're not aware. And I think it's something that will hopefully get taken into account going forward too. And we will have more to share with you too. So, yeah. Unless anyone else has anything to add, I just want to close up with some announcement news, re-go over the server login stuff, and then finish with the Tempoross trailer. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great to me.
Cool. All right. So I'll quickly blast through these. Exclamation mark Steam. Old School's on Steam. You can unlock achievements, badges, trading cards, and more when you play using the brand new Steam client. So type exclamation mark Steam to visit our store page today. And if you are having any issues with linking and unlinking your accounts, do exclamation mark Steam help for info or head to support.runescape.com. Exclamation mark game update. Last week we introduced an extra Tazard challenge down in Moral Rec with our latest game update from last week. Take on Tazar Ketrax challenges and face up to 6 Taztok Jads to earn yourself a transmog for your Jad if you're successful. Exclamation mark game update for more. Exclamation mark competition. We're running some competitions to give you a chance to get your hands on one of the King Black Dragon building sets that Jagex have had commissioned. Whether you're a creative or a seasoned fighter, there is something for you. So find out more by using exclamation mark competition to get all of the details. We also have exclamation mark update, which will give you more information regarding the ongoing server issues. So use the command to find out more, along with a link to RuneScape's update post from yesterday. And just to add on to that, tonight there will be a login server reboot that's expected to take around 10 to 20 minutes. This is your forewarning on that, okay? There will be a social post put out on all the platforms, including a news post to explain it, but it does mean that logging in and out and world hopping during that time will be affected. There is no, no intentions or signs that it will impact gameplay in any way. Unless you log out, you won't be able to log back in during that time. However, it's 10 to 20 minutes. It might be advisable to avoid any dangerous activities just in case. So if you've got any bank standing skills that you need to do, maybe that's the time to go and do them. I think that is everything that I wanted to get through at least, apart from saying a massive thank you to Mods Husky, Kieren, Spear, Druid, Light, and Sani for all of the help on putting together the stream. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you at home watching through the various different platforms, whether it be Twitch, Steam, or YouTube. Much love to you all. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your time on RuneScape. And let's finish with a nice revisit of the Tempoross teaser trailer.